Hello and welcome to my presentation, an urban field study of Drogheda in County Louth for junior cycle students. Today I will talk to you about how I would carry out this urban field studies, the rationale behind my choice of the topic, the learning outcomes, the resources used and the key skills for junior cycle that are covered. The rationale for choosing an urban field study and getting the kids out into the field is to give the students a real-world application of concepts studied in relation to the settlement and urbanisation of a town as laid out in the Junior Cert syllabus. It will kick back to material previously covered in that coursework, such as map reading, sketch mapping, recognising building styles and identifying different types of settlements. It will encourage students to also recognise areas of different land use, and they will plot them as we move through the town. And finally, it will reinforce the junior cycle key skills as students will be active and engaged at every stop. The learning outcomes of this field study are the following. By the end of the day, students will have discovered the social and historical context behind the settlement of Drogheda. They will have become familiarised with the ideas of function and multifunctionality and how they relate to Drogheda. And finally, they will have examined the land use changes over time as we progress through the town. The main key skill covered in the learning outcomes is managing information and thinking, although being creative and working with others plays a big part in today's lesson. It is important that students are well prepared for the field study, so in advance I will make sure that they know that there are a list of things that they need, including a camera or a good smartphone, pens and pencils, a notepad, good walking gear including a raincoat, an ordnance survey map which I will provide to them, and a medieval map which again will be given to them. We will begin our journey in medieval Drogheda, where each student will be given a map. I will give a brief overview of the early history of Drogheda, explaining that there are early Christian runes that show that I will explain that the modern name of Drogheda has its roots in the term Droghid Aha, which means a bridge over a ford or a river. And I will also inform the students that after the Norman invasion, the town was originally split in two. Our first and highest stop will be at Millmount, overlooking the entire town. Millmount is an important place to start as it is integral to the history of Drogheda, and it is without doubt one of the most dominant features of Drogheda, and it is clearly visible from most parts of the town. Students will be asked to plot the structure onto their ordnance survey map, and then in pairs they will list the features of the Motte and Bailey structure, and they will list the features of its defence. As we move on foot to our second stop, students will be tasked with two activities. By taking pictures or making notes, students will be asked to count the bridges that we cross or pass, and they will also be asked to list two types of uses of the buildings that we pass. This will keep the students engaged and does not allow for any downtime. Students are no doubt going to enjoy our second stop, which is St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church, as it houses the head of St. Oliver Plunkett. Before we go inside to look at the head, students will be tasked with the activity of recognising what style the church was built in, and in their pairs listing three features of that style, covering two key skills, working together and being creative. Having given a brief history of the importance of St. Oliver Plunkett to the town as we stand in front of the shrine of his head, I will ask the open-ended question to the students of why do you think his head was enshrined? What's the significance of the shrine? And as we move on to our third stop, students will again be tasked with the same two activities of counting the bridges and listing two uses of buildings. Our third stop is another church. This time it is Church of Ireland, and it's also called St. Peter's. While I give a historical overview of the church, students will plot the structure on their ordnance survey map. I will tell students that during the Cromwellian siege of the town, around 100 people found refuge in this church, but Cromwell found out and burned it down, killing these 100 people. and I will explain that there is a sculpture on the site in memory of this, and students will be tasked to find the sculpture. Moving on to our fourth visit of Magdalen Tower, students will again carry out their same 2 tasks while we move. After having given the historical overview of Magdalen Tower, we will point out together as a group some of the features of the Gothic style of the tower. Students will then be instructed to roughly sketch the Gothic arch of this tower. At this point, students are both managing information and thinking and being creative. As we make our way to our final stop of St. Lawrence's Gate, students will carry out their final survey of the bridges and the buildings as we pass them. When we reach St. Lawrence's Gate, students will be split into groups of 4, and they will be placed at north, south, east and west of the gate, of course having checked that this is safe and that the traffic allows for this. Within their groups of 4, students will plot the structure on the ordnance map, do a quick sketch of the structure from their point of view and list its defensive features, and they can also list anything else that is irrelevant. We will then regroup and put the 4 pieces of information together for a full overview of the gate. After giving the historical overview of the gate and pointing out its features, including 2 round towers, 4 stories and a portcullis, I will ask the open-ended question to the students of why they think this structure was so vital to the town. Now that we have visited all of the structures and buildings that we wanted to visit, students will be tasked with a closing activity. In groups of 4, students will be given a resource page on function and multifunctionality, where they will work in their groups and answer questions. The following 4 questions will be asked. What do they think function means in relation to urban settlement? How is this reflected in the areas that we visited today? Which function stood out most for you today and why? And finally, how many functions did you notice today altogether? For differentiation, there are 2 higher order questions and 2 lower order questions. Students will be given 15 minutes for this task, and they will be instructed to hand up their answers and told that they will be discussed in the next class. Their final task on the day will be a full group activity, and this will be an oral activity whereby they will give their answers for their data that they collected along the way regarding the bridges and the uses of buildings. So today's lesson has had 2 cross-curricular themes, that of maths, as we've done plenty of counting and number taking, and also of geography with the use of maps and ordnance surveys. And finally, before revisiting the learning outcomes with the students, I will instruct them with their homework, which will be to sketch a map of the route that we took today, marking in the 5 monuments that we saw. All key skills were involved in today's lesson, but in particular, managing information, working with others, and being creative. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast.